Last week, President Trump called into Fox and Friends for his first television interview in months. Now, CBS News has learned that the president booked himself for that appearance. He currently has no communications director, and a White House official confirmed the president accepted an invite from the show's co-host, Steve Doocy, before talking to staff about it. In the wide-ranging phone interview, the president discussed his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and Kanye West. CBS News White House reporter Jacqueline Alemany is the author of that article and joins me now. All right, Jackie, so much to get through. There was a lot of news, first of all, made in that interview. President Trump spoke about James Comey, the Electoral College, and his legal dispute with Stormy Daniels. Help us understand, what are the repercussions of the president's comments?
There is a reason why the White House communications team has been trying to keep the president off the airwaves, and that is because the president obviously is entangled in a lot of different legal disputes at the moment. And when he did that Fox and Friends interview last week, he admitted during this freewheeling, undisciplined interview for the first time that his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, was, as he said, representing him in this crazy Stormy Daniels deal. But then he went on to say that his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, only represents him in a tiny little fraction of legal disputes that the president faced prior to the presidency. 2 hours later, the Southern District Court of New York, whom had previously raided Michael Cohen's office a week before and seized his attorney materials, argued that because the president had just said that Michael Cohen only, had a little tiny portion of representation, that the materials are not protected by special privileges, which is what the president himself had been arguing, as has his legal team. So this can have possible repercussions. We're not sure yet what exactly, but we know that the special counsel is looking for potentially incriminating information. And if Michael Cohen has that, if these documents do prove that either Michael Cohen or the president was covering up something related to Russia, related to Stormy Daniels, campaign expenditures, it's really unclear, but it could be used against Michael Cohen and therefore used against the president.
Well, let's take a step back for a moment. There is a job in the White House called White House Communications Director. There is no one currently holding that job right now. So talk to me, Jackie, about the effect of the president basically acting as his own White House Communications Director in booking himself on an interview.
Right, that's exactly right. This is a highly unusual scenario. His old communications director, Hope Hicks, perhaps the only person in the White House capable of reining in the president during these chaotic weeks where he's not getting the press that he would like, left the White House a month or two ago, and no one has filled the void since, except for the president himself. And this is potentially really problematic. The president has a lot of huge foreign policy issues that he's dealing with at the moment, and his critics wonder why he's playing communications director and not steeping himself in policy and prepping for these huge things ahead. I made a list earlier, and it's a full page. He needs to decide this week whether or not he's pulling out of the Iran deal. He's renegotiating NAFTA. He's on the edge of an impending trade war, imposed tariffs on our allies. He has a huge summit coming up with North Korea. And, the president just canceled a big international trip to Peru and Colombia in order to prepare for this very potentially historic North Korea summit. So, the president isn't helping the optics, that he's more concerned with his cable news hits and his media appearances rather than policy. And we've known all along that, this president is above all else a master marketer and advertiser, and is very concerned with the way he's being perceived, and he perceives that he's being treated unfairly, and so he believes that he's his own best spokesman to get out there and make the case for himself.
Well, you mentioned Hope Hicks a moment ago. Is there any word on who could fill his position of White House Communications Director, or when even?
So there is no word at the moment. We have been told, we reported out a few weeks ago, that there was this messy internal battle, this feud. We've been told, the White House environment is very toxic because of this battle between Tony Sayegh, a Treasury spokesperson, and Mercedes Schlapp, Sarah Sanders, the press secretary's deputy. And they were vying for this position, planting negative stories about each other, and it was gaining a lot of attention. That has since died down, and what came out of that was that Kellyanne Conway, another White House counselor who's also a very trusted ally of the president, maybe one of the only people in currently, who's lasted this long in the administration in the White House, who the president really trusts, who was going to fill that position. But it doesn't seem she has moved into it yet.
Well, let's talk about White House Chief of Staff John Kelly. He told reporters Friday that basically everything was okay, and let's go ahead and play a clip of that.
We're about to have a breakthrough, I believe, on North Korea. The jobs report today, I mean, everything is going phenomenally well, attacking the opioid crisis. It's nothing less than brilliant what's been accomplished in 15 months, I believe.
All right, so not just okay, phenomenally well, he says. What is the reality of the situation with White House Chief of Staff Kelly? Are things, first of all, going well for him in his position within the West Wing?
Yeah, I mean, much like the rest of what we've seen this week coming out of the White House, that was a surreal, on-the-record comment. You have the Chief of Staff on the tarmac claiming in the midst of all this chaos that everything's going phenomenally well when it's very clearly not. Our Major Garrett reported a month or two ago that Kelly's job was on the line, and every week it continues to seem that way, and his role has increasingly shrunk. He's really lost control of the president, and that has become clear. We have reported that the president has been using his personal cell phone. He's flouted really all of the processes that Chief of Staff Kelly put in place in order to, have some semblance of normalcy and discipline in this White House. And Trump has gone out of his way to call everyone but Kelly. He's, brought back in Corey Lewandowski, Steve Bannon into the fold. He's reaching out to allies outside the White House to get all of these different opinions that internally the White House does not recommend, does not advise. And so, General Kelly's in a really difficult position at the moment, and he seems to have really lost his grip on this president.
Well, certainly no shortage of stories to follow on your beat. Jackie Alemany, thank you so much, Jackie.
Thanks, Elaine.